Hi everyone. Welcome to Tales from the Red Team Lounge. I'm Freaky. This is the Red Team Lounge. So this is going to be a reoccurring series. We're going to start off maybe every other week and see how that goes. I usually stay pretty busy with work, so we'll try to stay to the every other week, but it may be less, and I don't know. I might feel super motivated and do more. Hopefully, as this grows and people start talking about it, maybe we're able to get more guests on who are able to, maybe talk about things that they wanted to talk about, but maybe didn't have a platform for. Sky Talks comes to mind. I love Sky Talks at DEF CON, people being able to share stories without a lot of restriction. So while we aren't here to have anybody break NDA, I would like to, have people or give people the opportunity to share stories, sterilized stories from their careers as pen testers or security researchers or anyone affiliated with the security industry, honestly. Hopefully we create this space. Hopefully you enjoy it. And hopefully, we can create some entertainment. So, so tonight's topic is first steps. Obviously, this is the first episode of hopefully many more to come. So I thought maybe it was appropriate to talk about. Specifically, I wanted to talk about first steps in careers, first steps in interest into security, first steps as a pen tester, because sometimes those are the most fun stories, and oftentimes maybe the most educationally beneficial to your career. I can think of being early on in my career. For those of you who may not know, I just recently finished a Bachelor's of Science in Information Security and Information Assurance and Cybersecurity. But I can remember being early in my academic career and really finding a passion for security through videos that were being shared online and just my own past interests. I loved Hackers, the movie, when it came out. I don't want to divulge how old I was, but I was pretty young. But one of my favorite movies really kind of unfortunately influenced fashion choices. But it also influenced my interest in computers and security related to computers. I took a little bit of a winding path getting into security, non-traditionally. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen me talk about some of my past. Probably won't talk about it on this episode, but it's fair to say that it was non-traditional up until the point that I actually started school. So I've been lucky enough to be a pen tester and security researcher with IO Active for over a year now. I've been able to work on some amazing technologies with some amazing clients with some really, really smart individuals. It's been a journey. My first steps kind of getting out there into the security realm, were through student groups. First at my community college, I started the student hacking group called Talon's Group, which I later moved on from Talon's Group into Grey Hat Group once I moved on to the University of Washington. Grey Hat Group was amazing. We, did a lot of CTFs. I was introduced to a lot of the hacking community here in the Pacific Northwest. And it was actually my first trip to DEF CON, actually my first and second trip to DEF CON were with the student group, paid for by the university, totally sponsored. Amazing learning opportunity, amazing networking opportunity. I've met so many, just intelligent, gifted, and just really generous and sweet people. And I've been really fortunate for that. But that was really fundamental in, kind of those forming steps of me getting interested in security as, a full-time profession, of making this a career goal, of saying, I want to go straight to security and not even look back. So as I went through school, saying that you want to get into security often isn't met with a lot of enthusiasm. Whether that's from people who maybe don't necessarily understand the industry yet, or maybe see hackers or infosec, as something that is tied to, the shadows and, the dark web, and there's something inherently illegal about the activities. So it has been my experience that some academics will try to push you away from a degree or a academic focus on security simply for that reason. Now, I can say within the past couple of years, that's changed quite a bit, with security becoming a huge industry and starting to come into its own. But I still faced a lot of resistance, even from other, hackers, not other hackers at the time, but hackers within the industry. When I would come and say, I'm a student, I'm learning to, or, I'm looking to learn about these things, or I'm looking to get into the industry, a lot of times I was met with, well, I don't know if you have the right demeanor, or maybe you're not getting into it for the right reasons, or you just don't seem that technically minded. I remember a classmate of mine once told me that I didn't seem particularly dangerous, which I could go on for stories contrary to that, but it's beside the point. It still makes me chuckle to this day. So yeah, a lot of resistance. As I started my career as a blue teamer, I maybe had some internal conflicts because I wanted to be a red teamer, but I was on the blue team. But I found a lot of pride in the blue team. But there again, as I would voice my goals of wanting to go into security research or into pen testing full time, a lot of people are like, pen testers, that's that's not a noble career, sort of thing, or they're just kind of, parasites that leech off of companies, sort of thing. So that was very much the attitude that I was running into. It wasn't until, I started networking a lot, started reading a lot. Actually, Tribe of Hackers was, kind of that amazing push that I needed. I think it came out almost the time that I was really trying to make these big decisions about whether I was going to make a career out of being a blue teamer, or whether I was going to, just jump into the unknown and become a security researcher and start doing pen testing, because that was my passion, because it's what I loved. And, reading through that and reading through how, these hackers and all of these professionals in the industry had, at some point in time just kind of been like, I found myself saying this is what I wanted to do, and that's what I went for. And, I haven't looked back since. And just seeing how much fulfillment that people were getting out of this career and out of this industry, that's something that I wanted. And it was something that was immensely interesting to me. So, jumping into the security industry and having a sort of a specialized background, I was really focused on Bluetooth and wireless at the time. I still predominantly am, but I've started to branch out from there. I was sort of a niche. People are going to crucify me for this. Probably shouldn't cut that out. So coming in with sort of a focused background in wireless was a little bit difficult at times. I definitely had some people within the industry tell me that I was looking in the wrong places, and that I should, go to something like web app or network pen testing, something that was much more prevalent, something that was much in much higher demand. to some perspectives. But I'm really glad that I kept pushing for what I wanted and kept pushing for a job where I could, push security research, the boundary of security research, and push, myself and my technical abilities into these new technologies, and then break them. um, but yeah, I'm really glad that I stayed true to myself and that I pushed through, because now I'm in my dream job and I get to work on all these amazing technologies and I get to work with so many amazing people. So it's been immensely fulfilling and immensely rewarding, and I really hope that I can turn around and help other people, get interested in this as a career, get interested in this as a passion, help bring people into the industry. I've been a firm believer in, not just leaving the ladder down for other people, but actively helping people up the ladder. So that's kind of my big motivations now are, giving people maybe context, giving people the tools and the knowledge to be able to succeed for themselves in a space that has been just so absolutely rewarding for me and many people that I know. Going to cut to a guest segment. I had some audio issues at the beginning, but this is our first guest. His name is Jacob Quam. I've had the pleasure of working with Jacob at IOActive for a little over a year now. And we haven't really had the chance to kind of sit down and talk about our backgrounds and how we got interested in security or how we got into pen testing. We haven't worked on a lot of gigs together, just kind of worked out of the same office until COVID. This was a great opportunity to sit down with another pen tester who I work with often and don't know a lot about. So, like I said, I did have audio issues at the beginning. So, the question that I initially asked Jacob was, what drove him to become interested in security in general? And then what pushed him to make it into a career? And I think he has some really wonderful answers that, really highlight the fact that, people take non-traditional paths into security. And there are so many hackers out there that have come from backgrounds that you would never believe. He starts talking about biology backgrounds being, great hackers, and I've met people with all kinds of varied backgrounds. I myself have a fairly varied background. So, wonderful interview with a wonderful, wonderful security researcher. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you for joining me.
Well, I had a very interesting path into coming into information security. I was actually going to film school when I lived in Pittsburgh. And through just different things that I was researching there, I was researching a lot of film writers, getting into writing films and scripts, and kind of got me into researching the turn of the century Anglo-American and American literature. So I was reading people like Hemingway, Fitzgerald, and all these different people. And eventually that led me into a lot of the science research, just because in a lot of their books, they reference science. They reference a lot of people doing scientific research. So I became obsessed with Einstein, lots of different other scientists, and because I've always been interested in science. And so I was like, well, that's kind of cool. So I started researching science, and then I realized that I wanted to not do film school anymore, and I wanted to go and research science. So then I did. I started, going back to school for science, and my main interest was theoretical particle physics, and so I started really digging deep into that. And then I kind of came across what that lifestyle was like. Kind of made me rethink it a little bit, just because there's a lot of work for very, very little return in that career field. So that was, most theoretical scientists are lucky if they even get published within their lifetime. So I was like, thinking about things I could do that were a little bit more contributing, to society now, and what we could do with just our culture, society, people, anything happening now. So then I started researching into computers because my main job that I wanted to get was I wanted to get a job at CERN, which is a European organization for nuclear research over in Switzerland. And one of the things that I came across was they're facing a massive challenge with distributed computing. Ultimately, they have tons and tons of data. I'm talking petabytes of data daily during the research phases, which is when the actual LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, is running and creating experiments and producing data, petabytes and petabytes of data that just needs to be, number one, analyzed, number two, distributed to people so they can analyze it. And so I was like, well, that's kind of a unique challenge. And so that's actually what kind of proned me into researching computer science and all the different things that could happen there. And by some odd chance, doing computer science and stuff and researching computers and how they work, I came across some article somewhere. I couldn't tell you where it was or anything, but it was basically about some type of hack. I can't even remember what it was at this point, but basically kind of turned me into thinking in the direction of how a hacker thinks. And I was like, well, that's basically what I do now, but I do that now by accident, and a hacker does it by purpose. And so I was like, well, that seems interesting. So I started researching that a little bit, and then I kind of put the feel out in the community and was reached out to by a few people in my local community up in the boondocks in the Pacific Northwest, up in Port Townsend, and found a program nearby that had a Associates of Applied Science degree program for cybersecurity and digital forensics. And so I decided to give that a shot, and I did. And a year and a half later, I graduated my Associates of Applied Science, and was still kind of feeling out where I wanted to go at that point. So I had a really awesome opportunity while I was still in school to do an internship per se of, kind of half project management, half actual penetration testing. And so I got, it was for a startup in Seattle. And so I kind of got the idea of how all the different, number one, how a startup works, and then all the different components that go into it, project management, organization, talking with clients, acquiring clients, and such like that. So I did that for a while, and then I wanted to kind of get a feel of how the opposite side works too. So I wanted to see how the blue team works. So I got a job actually working for a SOC, and was just a SOC analyst. And eventually there started to build out a purple team situation. Basically started to collaborate with the consulting group of that company and the blue team group, the SOC analysts, and started creating tabletop exercises and different integration methods between those two groups. And then also that kind of spurred into creating our own internal malware analysis and detection platform, which I kind of headed out and started to build a little bit. But then, I was like, well, I want to start doing some more cool red team stuff. I want to check out like how it would be to do like hardcore red team stuff. And so by then I fielded out a few people and got the word around. Eventually I landed here at IOActive, and now I'm hacking things for them. I do have one story that comes to mind, and the reason why I think of this story is because it really points out how you can be thinking about things in a very unique way, and how you shouldn't be caught up in how other people think about things or how other people do it, because every single person is a complete individual. You're the only one of you that thinks like you, that looks like you, that does you, and everything can be different. So this was a situation where I was actually working in the SOC. I was actually working a night shift in the SOC, which really sucked because it was oftentimes very boring. A good portion of our customers were on the same, if not somewhat similar time zones to where our actual SOC was. And so nighttime was very boring. There wasn't a whole lot of alerts, not a whole lot of stuff going on. So, but there was some alert where, company, XYZ, I got some different alerts saying they were creating different admin accounts and such like that in their Active Directory. So I was like, oh, okay, it's probably just, the devs or the admins. I'm doing some testing or something. And so I was about to, acknowledge the ticket, look at it, and discard it. Right before I discarded it, though, I saw the name of the account that they just made. And it kind of stuck out to me because it was just initials. It was just three initials. And fortunately, I was very, I knew a lot of people in our consulting division, and I knew them personally. And those initials were the same as one of our lead consultants. And so I was like, that's probably nothing. That's nothing. And so I kind of put the ticket into my queue, let it simmer for a little bit, and then I started looking at what that admin was doing after it was created, and I started creating other accounts. So I was like, okay, well that's a little weird at this time. So I actually called up that consultant that I knew right there and then, and just asked him, I was like, you wouldn't happen to be on an engagement for X, Y, and Z company, would you? And his response was priceless. Or his response was just dead out. Why do you ask? And I was like, well, I think I just detected you. And he's like, no, you can't detect what we're doing. He's like, we're too good for that. We're too sly. And I was like, did you just create an account with your initials? And he says, I'll call you back tomorrow. And so it was. And the next day, I submitted the ticket, and I submitted it as a non-urgent thing. So then just the next morning, we can, consult with the client and contact them and say, we just saw this person create this domain. And, between coordinating with the client and then the consultants eventually came back to us and was like, yeah, this is totally us. You totally saw us doing this. And I took that opportunity too to say, well, okay, well, now that we know it's you, and all this, the morning analysts that just came in for the morning shift, I told them about it. I'm like, well, now that we know it's you, why don't we turn this into a purple team exercise? Because this is an ongoing engagement of theirs. And so they're like, yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. And so basically, we started ultimately comparing. One second, just lost my screen. Started comparing different things that they were doing to different detection methods that we had, alert signatures and rules and such like that. And at the end of it, we did a postmortem, and we were able to see, these are the things that automatically popped on our alert system. These are the things that with some, more integrated detection scripts and some digging and threat hunting of ours we could find. And these were items that you guys did a great job yourself. We couldn't, there's no rules that would detect it. It would have taken us, hours to find it in coordination with the clients and such like that to find these particular exploits they're using. And having done that purple team exercise, doing a postmortem like that, we were able to kind of gather up materials to better implement detection methods. And so then we could collaborate more, and we could actually write scripts that were detecting, some of these specific methods that they're using that no other, snort, circuit, anything like that was detecting at that point. So that was just that was kind of a fun story and kind of a cool, just this little instance kind of turned in and blossomed into this whole entire collaborative event that ultimately improved how we did things. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's neat how those small opportunities and just those tiny one-off chances that you happen to catch end up becoming those foundational pieces of your career. Yep. I have a very similar story with one of my first employers, and finding vulnerable devices within their environment that were just rampant throughout their environment. And here's their hourly paid intern who just bought a $30 device and now is demonstrating to the executive board how she can bypass their multi-million-dollar security system. So those small little chances and those one-off opportunities that you get, those happen to be those first steps that you take to build that larger career. So yeah, I hope that's inspiring for other people. It's inspiring to me to hear other people have similar stories.
And it is one of those things too, where I again kind of want to point out that there was no previously defined method, behind both those situations, behind my story or your story. There was no, if you perform X, Y, and Z, you'll get these results. So that's just to kind of point out how unique thinking ought to be in this type of industry, in every industry. And, for a long time, I still to this day continue to have the issue of, thinking about something that I could potentially put some work into and create or do. And then in the back of my mind, I think, there's tons of other smarter people out there that have already done that. There's no point in me doing that and everything like that. And the simple matter is that it's simply not true. It's every thought that you have is unique, and you should always chase, what you think might be unique, even if you think, with no facts and no supporting evidence that someone else smarter out there has done it or can do it. So why would you do it? That's not the case. Who was it? Was it Bill Gates? It was Steve Jobs. One of my favorite quotes by Steve Jobs that I like to kind of contribute to everything is something regarding the lines of the changing point in my life was when I realized that everyone that built the world is no smarter than me. It's a good thing to keep it in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Remember, everyone's human. And I think, just because somebody has done a project or, has already covered that ground, doesn't mean that, you shouldn't maybe undertake the project, or maybe you have parallel research that maybe leads you to new ends, or maybe uncovers something else that maybe they missed in their course of research. And not only that, but I mean, it's an immense learning opportunity, right? To follow in the steps of somebody else who's already kind of done the research. Like, in a way, you're kind of... you don't have to do the heavy lifting when you're doing the learning. You don't have to uncover all of the new stuff and uncover new ground. You kind of get to learn and use that to propel yourself off of. So
exactly, yeah. That's even to the point of we can go into a full discussion of neuroscience and how neurons fire and how each individual person interprets things. As another example of that, I was just doing a CTF challenge. I started a CTF challenge because someone else asked me if I had done it, and they want some help with it. And I was like, I haven't done it, but I'll look at it. And so I started to look at it, and I was like, can't really find anything. No. The person's like, yeah, I'm just at a loss. I have no clue. And we were both looking at the source of the page. It was some web app challenge, and so we were both just looking at the source of it and I was like, oh, hey, there's a comment down here that says, it was just a straight up HTML comment that said debug. So I was like, So I tacked on debug to the URL, and I was like, boom, we got the source code of the page. And it was just one little thing, I didn't have some type of expertise or anything like that. I didn't have any extra knowledge, know-how. I just happened to put my eyes across something that another person didn't necessarily think to do. And they could have done just the same, just by, but it was just hey, it's the whole having a second pair of eyes on something, it's to much larger aspects, like research, like forming different types of projects. Yeah, it's really cool. The individuality is really, really awesome.
Definitely. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the interview. We're gonna keep these episodes fairly short, but thank you for joining me on a Sunday afternoon. I think we're gonna try and shoot these on a Friday evening and try to get them out for Saturdays, but we'll see how this goes. So thank you, Jacob. I won't see you around the office anytime soon, probably, since we're all work from home. But I hope you stay healthy, and I hope your family stays healthy, and I hope your ribs are wonderful.
Well, I hope the same for you. And I do have one last thing that I'd like to say. Boot up or shut up.
Yes. Let me move my drink here. Boot up or shut up.
Where's James when you need him?
Well, thanks, Jacob. I'll talk to you on Monday.
Alrighty, I appreciate it. You have a good one.